What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Admitting When You Were Wrong. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we're going to be talking about the NBA's inaugural in-season tournament. This is more of an overview of it and how it greatly exceeded my expectations. I am going to prep for another video specifically talking about Anthony Davis's dominance in the championship game against the Indiana Pacers. But as we all know, the Lakers, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and all them guys, they are the inaugural in-season tournament champions. And this was a an idea from Adam Silver and from the NBA that when they originally announced the idea, I thought that it was a little corny. I was honestly very pessimistic about it. It seemed kind of gimmicky to me, just basically ripping the idea from the English Premier League. And I was wrong. I didn't mention this anywhere. I don't think I mentioned it in any videos. I wanted to do a video when the news initially dropped, but I never got around to it for whatever reason. And I think that was for the better because I would look mighty silly right now, but I'm not someone who's afraid to admit when I was wrong, especially when it is to the betterment of the NBA and the league and increasing popularity around it. The idea of an in-season tournament to make the games in November and December more meaningful was in it was a decent idea in theory, but I thought the NBA, especially the first time around, would fuck it up. My main point of contention was the league does not want star players resting at all during the season. They want to get rid of load management. They want nobody managing their loads. They want guys like LeBron and KD and Kawhi and them to be healthy all season long. And I felt that it just instinctively the best way to do that is to lighten the schedule. Go from 82 games to 72 games and then to 75 games potentially. And the idea of this in-season tournament just seemed counterintuitive to that. This was, of course, before guys like LeBron and KD and Trae Young praised Adam Silver and praised the league for their implementation of it. And that was when things really that was when things really flipped for me when I saw how receptive LeBron to it, how receptive Kevin Durant was to it. Because when you think about LeBron and KD in particular, these are two of the most respected guys in the league. They've been around forever. They've earned all of this admiration from their peers, from the league, from the fans, from everybody. They could easily come out and be like, yeah, this was a mid idea. I don't know what Adam Silver was thinking doing it. But they didn't. They embraced the idea of, the cash prize incentive in these games. They embraced the idea of being able to play for something before Christmas Day, like when these games are quote unquote meaningless. Perhaps it's the cynic in me for thinking that LeBron and KD were just saying this to say this, but again, when you look at how outspoken these guys have been on pretty much everything and anything pertinent to basketball and, things outside of basketball, they have no incentive to lie. There's no reason for them to glaze Adam Silver if they don't feel that he's brought a good idea. I will say the one thing that I really didn't like about the tournament was the different colored courts that all of the teams had. I don't know if this is just me being old, but old, quote unquote, old relative to everybody else on the internet. But when I see basketball courts that aren't wood colored paneling, it hurts my eyes and makes for a very unpleasant viewing experience. I think Trae Young mentioned to this as well. He was on a podcast that I saw a clip from. Like he said, some courts were better than others, but you know that's really my only issue with the entire tournament. And on top of the quotes from all of the star players, once I saw, everybody in the league taking these games more seriously. Everybody from Mikal Bridges and Jason Tatum to LeBron James and Aaron Nesmith. I was like, damn, these guys are actually like into this. They're into this, man, especially once we got past the group play and into the knockout stage. I saw NBA players locked in from tip off on a game that was on November 30th. I don't think I had ever seen that before. Of course, the November 30th date is arbitrary, but I had never seen these guys come so ready to play so early in the season. There are games that they do get up for every now and then, but, whether it be like a TNT game on Tuesday between the Lakers and the Nuggets, whatever. But even then, they don't really amp it up until the second half. The players in the NBA, they're going to pick and choose how much effort they put early on in the season because it's all about preservation. But when I saw LeBron in the knockout round scowling, like this guy was walking around like to begin the game, that's when I was like, okay, this is different, man. This was a fantastic idea by Adam Silver, and I take back everything that I had said about him to anyone. Of course, most of this being in private conversations. Overall, very impressed with how this entire tournament planned out. I saw a tweet from Ian Begley as well that says he said that ESPN said the in-season tournament title game was the most watched regular season non-Christmas Day game on any network in 5+ years. The audience peaked at 5,680,000 for Lakers Pacers. Of course, the cynics are going to be like,
that's because folks were hate watching LeBron, they were hate watching the Lakers.
I don't believe that. I believe that basketball fans enjoy watching basketball, and they enjoy watching basketball when there is star power. I mean, the championship game featured LeBron, featured Anthony Davis, featured Tyrese Halliburton, the newest superstar in the NBA. It featured an exciting brand of basketball from the Indiana Pacers. It featured, of course, anytime the Lakers are featured with anything, it's going to garner a tremendous amount of views. The NBA is entirely reliant on star power, and I really don't think it would have mattered who was in the championship game. It could have been Pelicans, Celtics. I still think that millions of people would have tuned in for that because it's Jason Tatum, it's Jaylen Brown, it's Brandon Ingram, it's Zion Williamson, and even more so to be said about the Nuggets or the Suns or again like the Bucks. Any team that has star power, people would have tuned into. And I don't want to. I'm not going to get into comparing the NBA's viewership to the NFL, for example, because the NBA will never be the NFL in terms of viewership. They are incomparable. The NFL has its own day. It's a religion here in the States. That works out very nicely for them. But the NBA, it's never going to be 10, 15 million people tuning into a regular season game. It's simply not that. There are rarely 15 million viewers on finals games. So I don't want to bring that into account. I want to stick to the high quality of basketball that was played. I legitimately felt like I was watching a playoff game in December. It was such a bizarre experience as an NBA fan because admittedly, I don't sit down and watch whole games that often. I am a flipper. I get League Pass on and I bounce around to the games that are the most entertaining. The championship game being the only game on that day helped a lot, but at no point was I like eager to switch off to something else. Even when halftime came on, 15, 18 minutes, come around, I'm checking ESPN, making sure that I'm able to get back into the game on time. Now, of course, this is merely anecdotal, but it was just, again, overall, a very fantastic experience. I'm glad that the NBA did something like this. I don't know, what exactly the incentive was. I'm sure it was the 500 grand that everybody got. That was definitely a nice incentive. I don't know if playing for a trophy during the middle of the season was a good incentive as well. Oh, speaking of the trophy, getting back to the court design, I don't mind the paint being turned into the in-season tournament trophy. That was fine with me. Again, it was just like the blues, the yellows, the greens, all of that was very just jarring for me as a viewer. Any potential tweaks going forward, I would like to see an overall reduction in the NBA schedule because guys didn't rest during this tournament, but who's to say, the All-Star break comes around and load management becomes a little bit more of a factor for teams. We will have playoff races by then, so I don't see it being that much of a detriment. But if the play at the end of the season is not equal or better to the play at the beginning of the season, I think that'll be something that the NBA has to consider because you don't want guys dropping off during the playoff races and into the postseason. That is not a good look for your sport at all. But overall, very good implementation by Adam Silver. The only critiques that I thought of were the court design, and then projecting this long term. I still think that ultimately the only way to get around to making games more meaningful in the early part of the season is to have fewer games. And that will also, in turn, lead to less load management. Adam Silver mentioned how like the Euro Cup is a thing, all of the in-season tournaments for the English Premier League and for various basketball leagues across Europe. Yes, that is a good incentive, but when you go to the Euro League, the season is like 45 to 55 games long. Hey guys, it's me again. Pardon the low light here. I'm editing this video and realized that I didn't properly explain the European basketball schedule, largely because I didn't look it up beforehand, which I probably should have done, but here I am now. There is the different leagues all throughout Europe, and some of these teams, like in Liga ACB, for example, will use Real Madrid. Real Madrid plays in Liga ACB and then also plays games in the EuroLeague should they qualify. The EuroLeague games are 34 regular season games minimum, with each team being able to play up to 41, including playoffs. You then have the regular league schedule, which will tack on like 30 to 35 ish more games. Just for some context, in 2022-2023, John and Musa played 73 games total for Real Madrid, and Sergio Rodriguez played 70. So while the disparity is smaller than I mentioned in the video, it is still like 8, 9, 10 fewer games than what they're playing in the NBA, and that is ultimately the point that I was trying to get at in that segment. So we'll roll with the rest of the video. It doesn't even compare, and not only that, the games are shorter as well. You have I believe it's what, a 40-minute game as opposed to a 48-minute game. That is another thing that, helps make games more meaningful. The fewer games that there are, the higher stakes that each game is, which is why, there are a lot of people that tune into NFL games. Playoff races can be altered in the span of 1 week. You look at the Dolphins, for example, they lose against the Titans. It drastically alters the top end of the AFC playoff picture because now other teams are jostling for buys. You look at the same thing that happened with the Cowboys and the Eagles. Like, teams are playing for buys. Teams are playing to get off in the first round, and it's largely because there are only 17 games. You only have 3 or 4 weeks at the beginning of the season to make sure that you're as tight and as ready as you can be. I still hope that the NBA considers shortening the schedule. I do hope that they continue to have the in-season tournament. I really think it was a welcomed addition, and I don't say that frequently. I'm not a meat writer. I don't do tricks on it just because it is the NBA. As a fan, as corny as this may sound, you do have an obligation to be critical of your favorite sports teams and also your favorite sports leagues because selfishly, you want the best experience possible. Fortunately, I do believe that the in-season tournament delivered a very pleasurable viewing experience. You got to see 3 of the league's best players play on a big stage early on in the season, and they all delivered. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. As always, everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Drop a comment as well. It really helps out with the algorithm. And with that, I'll catch y'all in the next one.